that how the scientist who was invisible somehow suddenly became visible to the people. So, what actually happened that made him visible? And the second question is, why was he wandering on the street? So, why was he wandering on the street? Why he was not at a particular place? Why he has not gone home? So, let's start with the chapter. I hope you will enjoy. The two boys started in surprise at the fresh, muddy prints of a pair of bare feet. What was a barefooted man doing on the steps of a house in the middle of London? And where was the man? So suddenly, the muddy footprints of bare feet appeared on the footsteps of a house, which was middle of the London. The two young boys who were playing there suddenly saw the footprints, and they questioned that from there these footprints have appeared. And if the footprints are there, where is the man? As they gazed means looking continuously at something. Okay. So when they gazed, a remarkable sight met their eyes. A fresh footmark appeared from nowhere. So they were looking at the footprints which were already there on the footsteps. But suddenly they saw that again a fresh footmark appeared and there was no man. Further, footprints followed, and this footprint kept on appearing one after the other. And slowly and gradually, it started becoming fainted. Okay? Descending the steps and progressing down the street. So, boys started following the steps. The boys followed, fascinated, until the muddy impressions became fainter and fainter, and at last disappeared altogether. So the boys were following the footprints, but suddenly the footprints disappeared because the mud started getting fainter and fainter. The explanation of the mystery was really simple enough. So now we are going to talk about that from where these footprints were appearing. The bewildered boys had been following a scientist who had just discovered how to make the human body transparent, right? So these two boys who were there, here they have been mentioned as bewildered. Okay, bewildered means, let me just highlight it. Okay, yeah, this is the word. Please underline. Bewildered means the boys who were a bit confused. Okay, who were baffled. So these confused boys, they actually were following the footsteps of a scientist who has just discovered a drug that can make a human body transparent, or we can call it as invisible. Griffin. The scientist had carried out experiments after experiments to prove that the human body could become invisible. Finally, he swallowed certain rare drugs, and his body became as transparent as a sheet of glass, though it also remained as solid as glass. So finally, the scientist Griffin, who has been working on his experiments one after the another, finally discovered the drug and he swallowed those drugs and his body became transparent. But it was solid, like if you're going to touch the body, you can feel it, but it was invisible. Brilliant scientist though he was, Griffin was rather a lawless man. Yes, he has discovered such an amazing drug which might have helped the country to achieve more. But because he was a lawless man, he decided to use the discovery in a negative way. The first lawless act that he has done was, yeah, here we go. His landlord disliked him and tried to eject him. In revenge, Griffin set fire to the house. Just imagine the house where he used to live. He set fire to the house because the landlord disliked him and he wanted him to leave the house. So, as a revenge, he did that. To get away without being seen, he had to remove his clothes. And as we have discussed earlier, that his body was solid. So, to become completely invisible, he has to remove all his clothes. Thus, it was that he became a homeless wanderer. And because now the house where he used to live He has put the house on fire, so he was now a homeless wanderer, without clothes, without money, and quite invisible. Until he happened to step in some mud and left footprints as he walked. And when he was roaming on the street, he suddenly stepped in mud, and that was the reason why those footprints were marked on the steps, and the boys were able to see. Now the story moves further. He escaped easily enough from the boys who followed his footprints in London, but his adventure were by no means over. So actually, he was an invisible man, but his body was solid. He has the body, and now because he has put his house on fire, so now he was homeless. So he was supposed to see some more challenges coming on his way. And here we go with the one. He had chosen a bad time of the year to wander about London without clothes. We are talking about the weather. Yes, it was midwinter. The air was bitterly cold, and he could not do without clothes. So for him, it was really difficult to roam around the streets without clothes because he was shivering. He might be feeling very cold. So instead of walking about the streets, he decided to slip into a big London store for warmth. So finally, he decided to get into a London store, of course, by a wrong way to keep himself warm. Closing time arrived, and as soon as the doors were shut, Griffin was able to give himself pleasure, clothing, and feeding himself without regard to expense. So after the store was closed, Griffin broke into the shop, and there he put on the clothes on his body, and he had the pleasure of eating also, and all the pleasures were being enjoyed by him without any expense. And moreover, he was not having any money also. He broke open boxes and wrappers and fitted himself out with warm clothes. Soon, with shoes and overcoat and a wide brimmed hat, so hat which is brimmed from the outer leg. He became a fully dressed and visible man now. In the kitchen of the restaurant, he found cold meat and coffee, and that satisfied his hunger. He followed up the meal with sweets and wine taken from the grocery store. Finally, he settled down to sleep on a pile of quilts. So after he had put on clothes and he filled his stomach, he finally decided to take some rest. If only Griffin had managed to wake up in good time, all might have been well. So if he would have got early in the morning, everything would have been well, but he got late. He did not wake up until the assistant were already arriving next morning. And when they saw him, they started chasing this man. And again, he has to run away from them to escape. And for that, he again has to remove all his newly found clothes. So once again, he was invisible but a naked man in the chill January air. This time he decided to try the stock of a theoretical company in the hope of finding not only clothes but also something that would hide the empty space above his shoulder. Because see, he was putting on clothes on his body, but his face was not covered. So it seems to be transparent, and that might be very scary for the people. So this time he decided to broke into a theoretical company where he could get all other things which are used in theaters and dramas. So he was shivering with cold. He hurried to Drury Lane. It was a place that was in the center of the theater world. He soon found a suitable shop. He made his way, invisible, upstairs and came out a little later. Now, what all things he has put on? He was wearing bandages around his forehead, dark glasses, false nose, big bushy side whiskers, whiskers you can say mustaches kind of, and a large hat. To escape without being seen, he colossally attacked the shopkeeper. It means suddenly. He did not give the shopkeeper a chance to escape. He attacked the shopkeeper and he robbed all his money. Okay, so you can see this is the third act of lawlessness. Okay, So we'll continue with the next part, the next video. Till the time, thank you everyone.